This is not romantic nostalgia. This is physics backed by data, the test of time. When you burn wood in a slow, smoldering fire to make it last all night, you are getting 10 to 20% combustion efficiency. A hot, fast burn in a properly designed masonry heater achieves 90 to 95% efficiency. That's the difference between wasting 40% of your firewood and extracting nearly all of its energy. Archaeologists examining medieval castle excavations in northern Europe found masonry heaters built in the 1300s that are still structurally sound. In rural Finland and Russia, families still use soapstone stoves built over 100 years ago, and they heat 2,000 square-foot homes with less wood than most Americans burn in a fireplace that barely warms one room. The gap isn't close. It's physics. The science they stopped teaching. Here's what actually happens when you burn wood. Wood doesn't burn. The gases released from heated wood burn. When you light a log, heat drives out volatile gases, mostly hydrogen and carbon monoxide. Those gases combust in the flames above the wood. What's left behind is charcoal, which burns at a much higher temperature. Smoldering fire, what most people maintain in their wood stoves, operates at 400 to 600 degrees Fahrenheit. At this temperature, wood releases gases, but they don't fully combust. They drift up your chimney as creosote and smoke. It's wasted energy floating away. A proper hot fire burns at 1,100 to 1,400 degrees Fahrenheit. At this temperature, nearly all volatile gases combust completely, releasing their full energy. The result: more heat per log, cleaner exhaust, and almost no creosote buildup. Here's the data. The U.S. Forest Service tested conventional wood stoves versus masonry heaters. Conventional stoves running at low burn rates achieve 35 to 50% efficiency. Masonry heaters with proper combustion exceeded 90%. That's not a 10% improvement. That's extracting twice the heat from the same amount of wood. The masonry heater principle in Finland. Study on traditional soapstone fireplaces proved that a 2-hour burn cycle could maintain room temperature for over 24 hours, in homes where outdoor temperatures drop to minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit. How? Thermal mass. A masonry heater isn't designed to burn all day. It's designed to burn hot and fast, transfer that heat into 2 to 5 tons of brick or stone, and then let the thermal mass radiate warmth for 12 to 24 hours. Soapstone has a heat capacity of 0.98 kilojoules, kilogram C. Brick is 0.84 kilojoules, kilogram C. These materials absorb massive amounts of heat and release it slowly. A 3-ton masonry heater can store enough thermal energy from a 90-minute fire to heat a home all day. Compare that to a metal wood stove. Steel has a heat capacity of 0.46 kilojoules, kilogram C, less than half that of stone, and a typical stove weighs 400 pounds, not 6,000. It heats up fast, but it cools down just as quickly. You have to keep feeding it wood all day to maintain temperature. You're not heating your home. You're babysitting a fire. Real-world validation where it never died. In rural Germany, Austria, and Scandinavia, modern eco-architects are building new homes with traditional masonry heaters, not for nostalgia, for performance. A 2019 case study in Bavaria tracked a home with a 4-ton tile stove. The family burned 3 cords of wood per winter to heat 1,800 square feet. Their neighbors, using a conventional wood stove in a similarly sized home, burned 6 cords. Same climate, same size house. Half the wood? In Maine, a homesteader documented his heating costs over 5 years. His steel wood stove consumed 7 cords per winter. He built a masonry heater. Its consumption dropped to 4 cords, and his house stayed warmer. This isn't theory. This is measurable, repeatable results. The combustion efficiency gap. The EPA published a report comparing emissions from different heating methods. Open fireplace, 5 to 10% efficiency, 40 to 60 grams of particulate per hour. Conventional wood stove older, 35 to 50% efficiency, 15 to 30 grams per hour EPA. Certified stove newer, 60 to 75% efficiency. 2 to 7 grams per hour masonry heater, 85 to 95% efficiency. 0.5 to 2 grams per hour. A masonry heater produces less smoke than any other wood-burning method because it achieves complete combustion. Smoke is unburned fuel. If you see thick smoke pouring from your chimney, you are literally watching your firewood escape.
The turning point.
So if masonry heaters are this efficient, this proven, this superior, why did they disappear? The death of the masonry heater coincides with three specific moments in history. 1. The rise of cheap fossil fuels. 1920s, 1950s, when oil, natural gas, and coal became abundant and inexpensive. Heating stopped being a design problem and became a commodity you purchased. Why spend $5,000 building a masonry heater when you could install a $500 oil furnace and just pay for fuel every month? At 2 cents per gallon, heating oil was so cheap that efficiency didn't matter. Burn whatever you want, however you want. The supply seemed infinite. 2. The suburbanization of America in 1950s, 1970s, post-World War II. Housing developments were designed for central heating systems, furnaces in basements, ducts in walls, thermostats in hallways. Homes were built as fast and cheap as possible. A masonry heater weighs 3 to 6 tons and takes a week to build. It doesn't fit a production housing model. Architects stopped learning how to integrate thermal mass. Masons stopped learning how to build heaters. The knowledge became specialized, rare, and eventually extinct in most of North America. 3. The convenience culture shift. 1960s, 1980s, a masonry heater requires you to understand fire. You need to know how to build a hot fire, how to recognize complete combustion, how to time your burns to match your home's heat loss. A thermostat requires you to turn a dial. We chose the dial. What we traded resilience for ease. We traded a system that required skill for one that required a monthly payment. We traded energy independence for dependence on a supply chain. A masonry heater is a one-time investment that works for 100+ years with zero input except firewood, which you can source locally, often for free. It has no moving parts, no electrical components, nothing to break. A furnace requires electricity, natural gas infrastructure, and replacement parts. When the power goes out, it stops working. When supply chains fail, you freeze. We didn't improve heating, we outsourced it. The hidden cost? Nobody calculates. Here's the math most people never do. Conventional wood stove heating, New England climate. 1,800 square feet, 6 cords of wood per winter at $300. Cord equals $1,800 a year. Stove replacement every 15 to 20 years, $2,000 to $3,500. Chimney cleaning annual equals $150 to $300 total over 30 years, $60,000 to $75,000. Masonry heater, 3 cords of wood per winter at $300. Cord $900 a year. One-time construction costs $8,000 to $15,000. Maintenance over 30 years equals minimal, maybe $500 total over 30 years, $35,500 to $42,500. You save $20,000 to $30,000 over 3 decades while being warmer and burning cleaner. But the real cost is knowledge. We've created a society that doesn't know how to heat itself without industrial infrastructure. When the grid fails, when supply chains break, we are helpless. Our great-grandparents could survive a winter with an axe, a forest, and a stone stove. We cannot. Reality check. You likely cannot tear down your house and build a 5-ton masonry heater in your living room. Most modern homes aren't designed to support that kind of weight without significant structural reinforcement. That's fine. But you can apply the principles that made masonry heaters work and dramatically improve your current wood stove's performance. Or, if you're building new or renovating, you can design thermal mass into your system from the start. Here are the core principles, extracted and made practical. Principle 1. Stop smoldering fires. Burn hot and fast. What you're doing wrong. You load up the wood stove, close the damper halfway, and let it smolder all night to make the wood last. You wake up to a stove full of half-burned logs and a window coated in black creosote. Why this fails? A smoldering fire operates at 400 to 600 degrees Fahrenheit. At this temperature, wood releases volatile gases, but they don't ignite completely. Those unburned gases condense as creosote in your chimney. That's a fire hazard and wasted energy. You're also getting only 10 to 20% of the wood's potential heat. What to do instead? Burn smaller loads of wood with the air intake fully open. Let the fire burn hot, 100 degrees Fahrenheit or hotter. You'll know it's right when the flames are bright and active, not lazy and smoky. The wood will burn faster, but it will release far more heat. If you need the fire to last longer, don't restrict airflow. Instead, use denser hardwoods, oak, maple, ash. that burn longer at high temps. The physics backing. Complete combustion requires oxygen and high temperature. Starving a fire of oxygen doesn't make it more efficient, it makes it incomplete. Misted is a function of combustion completeness, not burn duration. Principle 2. Add thermal mass around your stove. What you're doing wrong. Your wood stove sits in the middle of the room with 3 feet of clearance on all sides. The air around it gets hot while the fire burns, then cools rapidly when the fire dies down. Why this fails? Steel stoves have low thermal mass. They heat up fast and cool down fast. You're heating air, which rises to the ceiling and escapes. You have to constantly feed the fire to maintain temperature. What to do instead? Surround your stove with thermal mass. Options. Build a brick or stone alcove behind and beside the stove. With proper clearances, check local codes. Place fire brick or soapstone panels near the stove to absorb and re-radiate heat if renovating. Pour a concrete slab or install a stone floor beneath and around the stove. The mass absorbs heat during the burn and releases it for hours after the fire goes out. The physics backing. Thermal mass acts as a battery. It stores energy and releases it slowly. A 500-pound brick wall will radiate warmth for 6 to 8 hours after the fire dies. Steel won't. Principle 3. Insulate the firebox, not the chimney. What you're doing wrong. You've insulated your chimney pipe to keep the heat in, but your firebox is bare steel or thin cast iron. Why this fails? You want the firebox hot. The hotter the firebox, the more complete the combustion. Insulating the chimney is good for draft and preventing creosote, but it doesn't help combustion. What to do instead? Line the inside of your firebox with fire brick. Many modern EPA stoves come with this, but older stoves don't. Fire brick reflects heat back into the combustion zone, raising temperatures and improving burn efficiency. You can buy fire brick at Masonry supply stores. A complete firebox lining costs $50 to $150 and can boost efficiency by 10 to 15%. The physics backing. Combustion efficiency increases exponentially with temperature. A firebox lined with refractory material maintains higher temps, which means more complete combustion and less wasted fuel. Principle 4. Time your burns to heat cycles. Convenience. What you're doing wrong. You light a fire whenever you feel cold and let it burn all day at a low smolder. Why this fails? You're using wood to heat air in real time. As soon as the fire dies, the heat is gone. You're also burning inefficiently because you're prioritizing duration over temperature. What to do instead? Burn 1 or 2 hot fires per day, morning and evening, and let thermal mass do the work in between. If you've added mass around your stove, a 2-hour hot fire can keep your space warm for 8 to 12 hours. This matches the masonry heater principle: short, intense burns with long radiating periods. The physics backing. Heat loss from a building is continuous, but heat input doesn't have to be. If you can store heat in mass, you decouple burning from heating. You're not heating the room, you're charging the thermal battery. Principle 5. Burn only dry, dense hardwood. What you're doing wrong. You're burning whatever wood you can get: green pine, old pallets, construction scraps, softwoods that were cut 3 months ago. Why this fails? Wet wood above 20% moisture content wastes energy evaporating water before it can burn. Softwoods burn fast and cool. Low-density woods produce less heat per volume. A pound of wet oak might contain 30% water. You're using 30% of the fire's energy to make steam, not heat. What to do instead? Burn only seasoned hardwood wood that's been split and dried for at least 12 months. Ideally 18 to 24 months. Check moisture with a $20 moisture meter. You want 20% moisture? Prioritize dense hardwoods: oak, hickory, ash, maple best, birch, cherry good pine, fir, spruce. Use sparingly. Burns fast. The physics backing. Dry hardwood has an energy density of 20 to 30 million BTUs per cord. Greenwood is 12 to 18 million BTS per cord. You're getting 40 to 50% more heat from the same volume by using dry wood. The accessibility gradient. Easy free change behavior only. Burn hot fires instead of smoldering. Use only dry. Seasoned hardwood. Time burns to morning, evening instead of all day smolder. Low investment. $50 $200. Add Meyer brick lining to your firebox. Buy a moisture meter for your wood stack bricks or stones around, not touching your stove for thermal mass medium investment. $500, $2,000, build. Masonry alcove behind your stove. Install a soapstone or concrete hearth with thermal mass. Grade to an EPA certified high efficiency stove. High investment, $8,000, $20,000, build. Integrate radiant floor heating with wood-fired boiler design, whole house thermal mass concrete floors. Stone walls, most people will see a 20 to 30% reduction in wood consumption just from the easy. Free tier within one winter. Reframing the object, we look at firewood and see a chore. Something to split, stack, haul, and burn. The medieval mind looked at firewood and saw a bank account. Stored energy, wealth. A well-stocked woodshed was financial security against winter. It wasn't a chore, it was investment. This shift in perspective changes everything.
The lost wisdom.
Modern culture has taught us that comfort is a product you purchase. You pay the gas company, you pay the electric company, and heat appears. You are a consumer, not a producer. The masonry heater teaches the opposite lesson. Comfort is not a product. It is a relationship with your environment. You have to understand thermal mass, combustion, airflow, and wood seasoning. You have to plan ahead. Wood cut this year heats you in 2 years. You have to pay attention. Fires need timing, not just fuel. But in exchange, you are not dependent. The grid can fail, supply chains can collapse, prices can skyrocket, and you will still be warm. That knowledge, the knowledge of how to heat yourself with nothing but a tile of stones and a pile of wood, has been lost by 95% of the population. The fragility warning: we have built homes that cannot protect us without a constant lifeline to the industrial system. When the power goes out, our furnaces stop. When natural gas prices spike, we pay or freeze. We have no backup, no redundancy, no resilience. A masonry heater built in 1320 in a German castle still works today. Your furnace will be obsolete in 20 years. We have traded 700 years of proven bomb-proof technology for systems that require a functioning electrical grid, global supply chains, and monthly payments. And we call this progress, the bridge statement. The firewood rule isn't just about stoves. It's about the realization that the past was not a time of struggle and ignorance. It was a time of hyper-optimization born from necessity. When you couldn't just buy more energy, you had to extract every possible BTU from what you had. When you couldn't replace your heater every 20 years, you built it to last 200. Our ancestors weren't primitive. They're efficient in ways we've forgotten. Empowerment closed the good news. You don't need to build a 5-ton masonry heater to reclaim this knowledge. You can start tonight. Burn a smaller, hotter fire. Let it burn clean and bright. Watch the difference in how long your space stays warm after the flames die. You'll use less wood. You'll produce less smoke. You'll be warmer. You'll start to understand what your great-grandparents knew instinctively. Fire is not about burning wood. It's about storing heat. The fire is out, but the stone is still warm. Let me know in the comments, what's your current wood-burning setup, and what's the first principle you're going to try? Are you going to add thermal mass? Switch to hot burns? Start seasoning your wood for next year? And if this video changed how you think about heating, if it made you realize that old-fashioned doesn't mean inferior, subscribe. This channel exists to recover the knowledge we left behind. One skill, one system, one fire at a time.